1920s were a time where Broadway flourished, actors and actresses came about, and the film industry began.
In today's program, we will discuss these topics and how they contributed to the vibrancy of the 1920s. Mary Pickford was born April 8, 1892 in Canada, and is still one of Hollywood's most loved actresses for her flirty and innocent ways of performing. Music also evolved in the 1920s into what we call today jazz, and with it came new and crazy dance styles. Gloria Swanson was born March 27, 1899. She was most prominent during the silent film era as both an actress and a fashion icon. Sir Charles Spencer Chaplin was born April 16, 1889. He was an English comic actor and film director of the silent film era, and became one of the best-known film stars in the world.
Films blossomed in the 1920s, expanding upon the foundations of film from earlier years. Most U.S. film production occurred in or near Hollywood on the West Coast. By the mid-20s, movies were big business, with a capital investment totaling over $2 billion. By the end of the decade, there were 20 Hollywood studios, and the demand for films was greater than ever. Throughout most of the decade, silent films were the predominant product of the film industry. But the films were becoming bigger, costlier, and more polished. They were being manufactured assembly line style in Hollywood's entertainment factories, in which production was broken down and organized into its various components, including writing, costuming, makeup, and directing. Some of the major filmmaking studios that came about in the 1920s were Warner Brothers Pictures, Paramount, and MGM. Warner Brothers Pictures was established in 1923 by the Polish brothers Jack, Harry, Albert, and Sam. Warner Brothers Pictures became prominent by 1927 due to its introduction of talkies, like The Jazz Singer. Later on, it specialized in Bugs Bunny animations and other cartoons. Famous Players Lasky Corporation became Paramount Studios in 1927. MGM, first named Metro-Goldwyn Pictures, was ultimately formed in 1924. The famous MGM lion roar in the studio's opening logo was first recorded and viewed in a film in 1928. Other studios also existed in a shabby area in Hollywood dubbed Poverty Row, where cheap, independent pictures were made with low budgets, stock footage, and second-tier actors. Disney Studios, specializing in animation, Walt and Roy Disney originally opened their first studio in 1923 in Los Angeles. Anita Evelyn Pomares, born August 4, 1910, better known as Anita Page, was an American film actress who reached stardom in the last years of the silent film era. She became a highly popular young star, reportedly at one point receiving the most fan mail of anyone on the MGM lot. She was referred to as the girl with the most beautiful face in Hollywood.
Buster Keaton, considered one of the greatest comic actors in film history, Keaton used his considerable acrobatic skills which he had developed as a child in vaudeville in many silent comedies in which he portrayed a hero who survived against great odds. Among these movies are The Navigator, The General, and Steamboat Bill Jr. John Barrymore. No other actor reached such heights of achievement and fell to such depths as John Barrymore. At the peak of his career in the 1920s, he was acclaimed the greatest Shakespearean actor of his generation. He appeared in over 10 big films in the 1920s, including Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Sherlock Holmes, and Beau Brummel. In the 1930s, his career declined and he never made a comeback. Josephine Baker. Born June 3, 1906 in East St. Louis, she made a name for herself early on as a great dancer. She was well known in the 1920s as the co-creator of the first all-black musical on Broadway called Shuffle Along. Shuffle Along made tap dancing a hit. Josephine Baker later went on to become a prominent leader in civil rights movement.
Born on the Lower East Side of New York in 1891 and the third of 4 children of immigrant saloon owners, Fanny Brice decided early in life to become a performer. Brice starred in the Ziegfeld Follies in the 1920s and 30s and became known for her beautiful voice and limber grace, which she always used in the service of humor. Brice, who spoke no Yiddish, rose to stardom performing comedy with a Yiddish accent as her trademark dialect. She became the first crossover performer of the new century, eventually conquering not only Broadway but films and most successfully radio. Born in 1895 to a French mother and Italian father, Rudolph Valentino grew up in Italy. His father died while he was young and his mother spoiled him. He did poorly in school and eventually ended up studying agriculture. After a stint in Paris, he returned to Italy, broke. His family decided to send him to America where they figured he would sink or swim. After taking a job as a dancer, he went to California to work for a musical and discovered his passion for acting when a friend suggested acting in Hollywood. He starred in movies like The Sheik and The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Tallulah Bankhead was born in Huntsville, Alabama on January 31, 1902, to a very politically active family. As a child, she always craved for attention, and it was no surprise that she discovered that being on stage fulfilled that craving. After winning a beauty pageant at 16 years old, Bankhead decided to move to London to perform on stage, and after becoming a star there, she moved back to America to try her luck at acting.
In addition to the film industry and music in the 1920s, ballet also flourished. One of the most prominent and most remembered ballerinas was Rosella Hightower. She was one of the most brilliant, elegant, and expressive ballerinas in the mid-20th century.
This production was brought to you by MMDM Productions, House Productions Incorporated, and the American History Foundation.